Well, good morning. It is time to get started. So we are here for Better Each Day. This is a 90-minute podcast, if you want to call it, a masterclass that I do every single week on Saturdays, same time, 6:30 Pacific time for session 1, 7 o'clock for session 2, 7:30 for session 3. And what do we cover in each one of these programs? The first one, focused on Better Each Day, is about the concept of how we actually become better each day by increasing our performance. Okay, our performance has got to be the key element that we pay attention to, that we focus on in our personal life, because not only is life chaotic, but it's going to get more chaotic economically and in other ways because of what's happened in the wellness, or you want to call it the health environment of the pandemic that started, a little over 2 years ago. And so now we're seeing the repercussion financially, economically, with a boom that is now turning and starting to peak and maybe even reverse, and could create something of a recession, maybe stagflation. And some people that are the kind of the doom and gloomers are talking about a potential global depression. Well, let's hope that the latter doesn't happen, but the other two are probably inevitable. So if you're going to do that, how are you going to maintain the mental toughness? How are you going to keep your focus? How are you going to stay online and, being able to keep everything, what do you want to say, in the same manner and the same focus that you've always been? How are you going to be able to do that? And the answer is you have to have a plan. So I'm going to share with you a concept here that, if we go through, and I'll show you some of the slides here as we're jumping through. We'll come back and talk about this a different session. But we went to and focused on all of those concepts here before. Okay, this is a common theme here that we have, is we focus on what is the end result, and we create a gravestone effect. Okay, what do we want our life to be legendary for? We work backwards to a single goal that will take us about 10 years to become. It's something you be, not something that you do. Most goals are designed about something that you're going to do, an amount of money that you're going to do, a job that you're going to get, a home that you're going to build, a vacation that you want to go on. All those things are what I call doings. But in order to do these things, you have to become something more than you are now. So you focus on a new version of yourself, a better version of yourself that you want to have happen in this alignment of where you want to go towards the end of your life. So you become something more than you are now in 10 years from now. Then you have to focus on what are the things that you're going to do to become this person. Okay, do you need to earn more income? Do you need more education? Do you need more certifications? Do you need more what I call time under tension, which is actually battle testing what you do and how you do it? And then you get down here, what are the little next actions that you need to do when this very bottom line is basically where you are in time right now, beginning now, this is where you're moving forward to this ultimate outcome that you want as a gravestone. So this is what we've been talking about now since we began this masterclass back in January. So we've been now, we're finishing 5 months of this program every single Saturday. For those of you that are, extreme, and this is something that you believe in dedicating your life to, that's what we're focusing on. We covered this a couple months ago, but I'm gonna bring it up again because this is how we feel, and this is what happens over time. So anytime we build a big personal legend out here in the future, we have this incredible hope and the arrogance that it's going to be super simple to go to the top of this 6,000-foot mountain peak, and it's not going to hurt. There's not going to be any challenges. There's not going to be any problems. And the answer is that is just absolute foolishness, because there is no such thing. I've not climbed a 6,000-foot mountain. I've climbed mountains that are 1,500 to 2,000 feet. And my legs felt like they were going to blow up and fall off because they were hurting. My lungs were hurting because I had to stop along the way to catch your breath, because you're lifting your weight over and over again, going up that grade. So what happens is you develop this pain, and the pain is pressure. Okay, the pressure to do what? To quit. The pressure to give up. The pressure to go back down the hill, back into the valley where all the average mediocre people choose to live, and to give up and find an excuse. Oh, I couldn't go any further because, and you come up with some excuse. And this is the way most people live their life. They live their life in the same way. They say they want to achieve something fantastic in their life. And then when in the process of achieving that, they run into this pressure and pain. And in doing so, it really does not give them an ability. Let me get a laser pointer here. This pressure right here forces you to feel this hope, and your arrogance depletes, and you realize it's harder than you thought it was. And you get down here in the bottom. The problem is no one can tell you if you're at the bottom. All you feel is that your hope is getting smashed. You get humbled because your arrogance now looks like foolishness. And when you get down here, the only thing that's going to matter over time is called time under tension. This is the key thing that builds strength. And if you have the endurance, some people call it grit, then what you will eventually have, you will use this pain and pressure, and you will develop strength. You will develop the ability to keep moving forward, to take your breaks, to take your rest, grab your breath, and then to keep pushing up the hill to get to the next level. Okay, as you're pushing to get to the next level, to get to that goal that you thought was going to be super easy, you find out what destiny is all about. You find out what you're made of. And this insight that you get here, due to the grit, the endurance, you gain this thing called experience. And the experience that you gain from having the pain and pressure feel like not just it's hurting your legs when you're physically climbing something, or taking you out of breath because you're trying to do things that are tasking or testing you or pushing you to your limits. But when you take your break, which you should always do, it's not about just because you have to take a break, that means you need to turn around and go back down the hill and quit. It's about taking the break, catching your breath, and then pushing a little farther. Taking a break, catching your breath, pushing a little farther. And what happens is these insights that you gain is, how do you do that? I mean, when I go up and do my 600-foot climb that I do a couple times a week here on Pilot Butte, I've learned a breathing pattern. I learned it from Wim Hof. And the breathing patterns feels and sounds much like hyperventilation, but it's a process that he's used to climb the most incredible mountains out there, and to do them in record time, and to do them without the normal acclimation process that most people have done, moving to different elevations and then acclimating. He runs right through those and keeps going. So I've applied something that gave me insight that does work. So it allows me to continue my endurance, to keep moving forward. And that confidence that you get is different than arrogance, okay? The difference between confidence and arrogance is this thing right here. It's called performance, okay? Performance under pressure, time under tension, TUT. That's where you get the confidence. So confidence is something that you have because now you can share your insights that you have earned. See, over here, when you're talking about arrogance, you haven't earned the insights yet because you haven't been into hell. So that's the most important thing for you to learn how to do when you're gaining this thing and moving to this outcome. And this is what it looks like over time. You keep doing this thing over and over again and practicing and preparing and planning, and it doesn't seem like you're getting any results, but over time you're getting these little minor results, but you don't know where it's going to change, where you're going to get the big results. You don't know even if you are going to get those. And that's why it's important to maintain this concept, a Japanese term called Kaizen, which is about continuous improvement. And is about maintaining this performance and going upscale. And because we don't know where this is, what most people happen is they lose heart. They lose heart back here because they're like, I'm going up this big mountain, but I'm not getting any results. Nobody gave me a trophy. Nobody gave me an attaboy. Nobody told me that I was wonderful today. So you keep going and you keep going, you keep going. And eventually, even after everyone has abandoned you and decided that you were foolish and your idea of success was something that isn't comfortable for them, then before you reach this goal, you got to realize that you're going to lose a lot of those friends that are really just fair weather friends. They want you to be comfortable with their level of mediocrity. So they try to bring you down to theirs instead of pushing you up to this great peak that you want to go to. And we've talked about with this is the actual 5 S's of continuous improvement. These are the Japanese terms. This is what they translate to, and this is what they mean. So we've talked about this in prior events. We've talked about how most individuals live here in this unconscious incompetence. The Socrates talked about 2,500 years ago, and they are unconscious of their incompetence. And it doesn't mean that you need to be like a crazy judgmental person. You just have to understand that there's this guideline here where you get to where consciousness comes in And then you realize that there is another level, and the only way to get here is going through this Thechiroscene effect that looks like this. This is what the Thechiroscene effect is about. Kairos was the character in Socrates' story called the cave. And Kairos was the individual that wasn't happy with status quo. He wanted to be something different, so he did something different. He acted different. He performed different, and he did something that was opposite of all of his other friends and peers, and he actually got rejected by them. So you have to be willing to be humble, and the hope that you had when you decided that you wanted to achieve this great legend early on, you didn't understand how painful it was going to be going into the valley to learn and break down your arrogance and turn it into insights. This is experience. So when you felt the pain and pressure, this is where most people decide, oh, it's not worth the climb. And they turn back around instead of just pausing, waiting for a minute, taking your breath, learning a better breathing pattern, and then continuing to perform. They don't do that. They miss it. They walk away from it. And then they go back in the valley where all the other mediocre, average people console them and give them a pacifier and tell them that it's going to be okay. And, you know, we're all in this thing together, and we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and be happy with our lack of performance. And in doing so, we disrespect the creator, in my opinion. In my opinion, this is what life is about, is to find out how much tension you can maintain under pressure and how much grit do you have so that you gain these invaluable insights, this experience that can only be captured while you're in the middle of the pain and the pressure. This is not something that's awarded to the people that are living in the valley, watching Netflix, playing on social media for 8 hours a day and all that other kind of garbage. And you're like, Steve, well, that's judgment. Yes, it is, because the bottom line is our world is in bad shape. We had an incredibly horrible event, again, that has occurred in the US this week. Many of you know about it if you watch any level of news. And I hate to even bring it up and talk about it because it's stunning, okay? That the level of insanity that can hurt innocent people and innocent children, it's just amazing. And when you hear that, it makes you want to quit. You feel the pain, you feel the agony, you see the parents and the family and the community and a state and a country and a world that's just sitting here staggered by one person's level of insanity that just, it doesn't make sense. And in that senselessness, what happens is most people get down here and they quit and they cry and they come up with a reason that is explains why they're going to quit and go back down the hill. Only the few that want to be Thechiroscene, okay, that want to, I went the wrong direction, hang on here, that want to go through this process and go through the event and use the event to create more consciousness of the incompetence that our world is in right now. There has to be a better solution, but you have to first become conscious. You can't let yourself fall back to unconscious incompetence and then go back and wallow in our misery and our agony of normal human beings. We have to use this event as an opportunity to become more conscious of our incompetence as a society, of why we didn't see this individual earlier, why we didn't take precautions, why these young, innocent children were, you know, so vulnerable. How is there a way that we can protect them? And the only way we can do this is becoming more conscious and staying conscious long enough to move to this level. So we can get to conscious competence. So we can do things that look more competent, that function more competent, that act more competence, and then take care of each other. So, oh, that was the last slide. Okay, so what I want to do here is, let me close this, and I want to jump over here and jump to this. I want to show you this video. So we're going to jump in here and watch this, and then we'll come back and spend some time focused on gratefulness. There's a specific reason why some of us right now. Oh, hang on a second. I need to stop this and jump back here. Share. I need to add the sound on it. Sorry about that. And here we go again. And I'm going to start it back at the beginning. Here we go.
There's a specific reason why some of the most renowned athletes often don't take the last shot to tie the basketball game. miss the putt to take the lead, or strike out with runners on second and third with the score tied. It's the same reason the rest of us freeze when we get in front of audiences, tank at job interviews we know we're qualified for, and fall short of personal targets that we logically should have smashed. The problem is that when we're faced with a high-stakes situation, our unconscious mind takes over. We get anxious or angry or overwhelmed or fearful, and we cannot logic our way out of those feelings. We can't logic our way out because unconscious problems don't have rational solutions. But that doesn't mean the solutions don't exist. When you find yourself in those moments of panic, you're operating from something called your trapped self. Your trapped self is the version of you who acts from a place of fear. The one who is constantly on the lookout for threats, stressors, and opportunities for failure. And guess what? When that's what you're looking for, that's usually what you'll find. Now here's the good news. This version of you, the trapped self, isn't the only version you have available. We also have what I like to call a heroic self. Your heroic self is the version of you who is constantly looking for opportunities to expand, to grow their skill set, to master new challenges, to hit that home run out of the ballpark. Where your trapped self sees a threat, your heroic self sees a challenge. Where your trapped responds with panic, your heroic self responds with courage. And where your trapped self retreats to preserve its dignity, your heroic self expands to grow its skill set. Now the question is, how do you access this heroic version of yourself? When you're operating from a place of fear, your heroic self seems like an out-of-reach fantasy. The good news is, that's okay, because you don't have to change who you are to access your heroic self. You just have to change the way you show up in the world. Imagine, you're about to step on stage to make a speech. You might be terrified, you might feel shaky, uncertain, and like you're about to throw up. Now imagine that the moment you stepped on stage, you transformed into Wonder Woman, or Mother Teresa, or Nelson Mandela. What kind of impression do you think you would leave on your audience? Would your insecurity drop away if you had the raw courage of your favorite superhero? The measured wisdom of a famous philanthropist? How about the incredible leadership abilities of one of the world's most relentless politicians? Almost anything you said on that stage would be well received by your audience. Not because they'd automatically believe it, because you would. Here's a little secret about most of the successful people you admire. Most of them have an alter ego. LeBron James isn't the same person on and off the basketball court. Oprah Winfrey isn't handing out cars after hours. Even Wonder Woman went by Diana when she wasn't busy saving the day. None of the superheroes you admire, real or fake, operate as their heroic selves all of the time. And you don't have to either. Because your inner hero isn't there to change who you are at your core. It's there to unlock the capability that's always been inside of you and to access it whenever you need to swoop in and help you save the day.
So the whole program that Todd Herman is talking about today is the superhuman part of ourselves. Each one of us have it. It is that element that we can access. And the beautiful thing about this concept that Todd Herman, which trains mostly his clientele, are top performing Olympic athletes. He also has executives, C-suite level executives running major companies, or individuals that are at some level even running a smaller agile company, but are dealing with wearing multiple hats to run maybe a technology company. So this is a coach of coaches. This is an individual that is the kind of coach that people come to that have already achieved all the mountaintop, the summits, and they're looking for how do they get to Mount Everest. He's that guy that focuses on that mental toughness. So what does it take to learn to get to that level of insight? What does it take to learn to perform at that level when you feel like your entire inner self wants to come unglued, because the level of pressure of climbing the climb, of feeling your legs and your lungs and your whole body feeling like it just wants to stop and quit, because you could call it chaos, because the chaos is inside of your body. I'm talking about a physical challenge, but I'm mirroring that to a mental challenge. All challenges are not physical. They're mental. I don't care if it's business. I don't care if it's relationship. I don't care if it's fitness. You name it. Whatever you're trying to achieve in life, it begins in this gray matter about, what is this, 6-8 inches between your ears, okay? It is all about how you think about your thinking. It is your philosophy. It is that difference between why you do what you do and trying to do something that arrogantly is just trying to get the accolades or the, what I call the golf clap, from those individuals that are peers, to post something just so you can get a like, as opposed to doing something that is truly a challenge, that in the process of doing the challenge, that term challenge means that you have to suffer. It means that you have to go through the difficulty. It means you have to feel the agony. You have to do the discipline, which means the first time you go up the hill, you got to stop, pick it 20 times. Okay. Why? Because your lungs are not in shape. You haven't practiced enough yet to be able to perform better. So you stop 20 times. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a judgment. It's a baseline. It's a judgment that you have to do for yourself to say, where do I begin? And if it's, I can only do one push-up today and I have to do it on my knees instead of on my toes, then set your baseline and do the suffering, do the agony. Now, you're like, Steve, okay, we started this event today and it's focused on how we become better, right? And the idea is how to be grateful and using that gratefulness to increase our performance. So how in the heck are you trying to tell me that I'm supposed to be grateful about hurting? How am I supposed to be grateful about the suffering? And I guess the answer, not I guess, I'm going to tell you the answer, because this is something that I have done many, many times in my life. So I'm not speaking from arrogance. Arrogance is something that I'm reading somebody's book, and their book told me to say this. And so I parrot it, and I'm telling the pretty words that someone else actually experienced. I'm going to give you my words. I'm going to give you my experience. And that's why I teach Better Each Day, because I know what it means to be better each day by going through hell for many, many, many years by myself, when everyone else basically decided, well, Steve, going to that next summit's too difficult for me. I'm going to quit. And so whether they were friends or even family members, or and those individuals decided that the agony and the pain wasn't worth the endurance. The time under tension was too much. And so they quit. They quit and they went down the hill and they went back to the valley where all the mediocre, average people of our world that are unconsciously incompetent, they don't even know that they are living in a world of despicable misery, but they have become familiar with the despicable misery. And it's what they now watch the news every night, and they live in this world and they decide to acquiesce. They give up, they settle for that level of non-performance, because there's no performance there. There's no extra. There's nothing you have to do. You just kind of wallow in your misery. So the few that decide to go up the mountains are oddities. They are anomalies. And many times when you see the people climbing the mountains, the people in the valley don't feel good about that person. Why? Because that's another human being that's just like everybody in the valley that decided to climb up out of the valley to reach these summits. And in doing so, that person is basically proving to all the people in the valley that you could be the better version of yourself, but you are responsible for choosing to be something less. You are disrespecting the creator. You are not pushing yourself to go up to that summit and maybe have to stop 20 times along the way or 200 times along the way. See, reaching a summit and pushing yourself to the better version of yourself is not about doing Olympic level performance on the first try. Absolutely not. And that's where Todd Herman's psychology comes in here. He talks about this thing called the alter ego. And the cool thing is you don't have to change and become anybody else. You have to realize that the person inside of you, the superhuman individual that's inside of you, you just have to learn how to let that individual out. You have to learn how to put on that uniform to access that persona. And in doing that, that is the training mentality that all these top performers do that on a regular basis. It's part of their natural discipline. Why? Because they plan, practice, and prepared over and over and over again, so they don't have to go through what I call stepping into the phone booth. We're going to talk about that in the next session. So if you're in the middle of this program right now and you're going to be on the next session with us, if you're watching this on recording, then we're going to jump to our second of 3 programs. And the second one is focused on the compass. So the compass is the actual mechanics, the device. What do you do? How do you do it? What is the method to the madness of enduring this suffering? People will call you mad. They will say, Steve, this is insane. Why would you possibly do this level of suffering every single day, week, month, or years? And the answer is, it is maddening. And there's many times when you get up in the morning and you don't want to go do it. And sometimes it's cold, and sometimes it's raining, or sometimes it's just super hot. And so it's not always a great experience. Like you see some of the pictures that I'm putting out here. I mean, some of them that I was doing back in December, I had layers of sweaters on, layers of hat, and a face gear on because it was so cold outside. But I still went out there and did multi-miles of hikes and got to this amazing waterfall. And I put the video on there, but it was, literally frozen. There was icicles hanging off the side of the waterfall and everything. Now, how do you get a chance to experience that? Well, I was the only one out there that morning. That means I was the only one crazy enough or mad enough to actually go out there. And the only other person I found in the snow out there was some type of cat. I guess it was a small mountain lion, or I don't know if I think there's more mountain lions here than there are cougars. But the point is that there was someone else out there, okay? And it was another human being. So again, a lot of people would use that as an opportunity to go, whoa, wait a second, there's someone out here in the snow and that's dangerous. I need to run and leave. And that's part of your fight or flight mentality. The thing is I had my knife, I had my gear, and I kept going because I had an objective. My objective was to reach the waterfall by lunchtime. And it was a hard hike. And the reward was getting to the waterfall and getting there and having that big thermos of coffee and a protein bar and getting to feel the accomplishment. There's the reward. That is the confidence that comes from doing things that suck, doing things that hurt. You've heard me use the term many, many times. I've embraced the suck. I got that from my dad because it's a Marine term. That is the whole part of why they are so admired as a fighting organization, is because they always go and they're always shipped to the most difficult place to fight in the world. So I'm giving you this concept simply because it's something that is life-changing. It will change your mind, it will change your performance, and it will make you that better version of yourself. So I'm going to give you the links. We'll jump on to the next call that will come up here in the next 60 seconds. So I'm going to jump off this one. Be sure to grab the link that's in the program or on Facebook, and I will see you on the call in the next 60 seconds. Have a better day.